Right, hello everyone. I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. I did not make the journey to Kings Lynn today, and I'm very, very lucky that I didn't. It's an interesting story, this. So we will talk about the game, obviously. I think that's sensible, but not just that, to talk about what actually happened before the game, because it's relevant. So give a minute perhaps for a few more people to join us. And while we do that, just to say Wrexham winning 2-0, pleasing away victory. I apologise if there's any strangeness, by the way, about the quality of the stream. My laptop's in for repair, and I tried to set this one up and then found the drivers were out of date. So I hope it's okay. It seems to be trying to pixelate my face. Oh, that's slightly better or worse, depending on your perspective. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Okay, so I guess it's time to go through what actually happened here. A few people are jumping on already, and honestly, it was not good. Kirky talking about boycotts. Well, I'll fill in probably what you've worked out already. And hello to the rest of you who are here. Jeff, I've enjoyed some of your tweets lately. You talk a lot of sense. Well done. Hi, Martin. Hi, Robert. Right, okay then. Right, let's get going. The media team. So 3 members of the media team, because obviously with COVID, we've got a problem in terms of sending media team members over. Otherwise, I'd have gone. Went across to Kings Lynn, which I'm sure you'd agree is not the shortest of away matches. Just before they arrived at the ground, they received a phone call telling them that they would not be allowed to come into the grounds to commentate. It's not right. My first issue here is with the National League. The National League does not have proper regulations for things like this. It never has. And to be perfectly frank, that's amateurish. So, I mean, can you imagine a situation in the Premier League or the Football League even where the owner of a club just says to another club, I don't like you, so you can't broadcast here? Sadly, the National League doesn't have that level, doesn't have rules over things like this. It's rather cowboy country. So clubs have refused to allow commentaries in the past. Before this season, the only time I've ever experienced that, and I mean ever, in any competition, whether it's Welsh competition, English competition, Football League, or National League, the only club that have done that has been Boreham Wood, who have consistently charged, and we were scandalised by that because no other club does. It's a quid pro quo relationship. Media teams are allowed into a club to commentate, and then you reciprocate, and they come in the other direction. This season, Stockport stopped us from streaming, which was rather disappointing, commentating rather, and clearly their thinking was to make more money out of the stream, which I understand to an extent. My gut feeling is that people choose whether they want to watch or listen, for either preferential reasons or financial reasons. So I don't think that would make a huge difference to their figures. But anyway, okay, they decided that. I think it was a poor show from what is normally a progressive club, but fair enough. What Kings Lynn did today is much more than that, though, isn't it? They did not contact the club at any point this week. Everybody knows that we commentate on every game live. Like I said, apart from Stockport this season and Boreham Wood on 3 earlier occasions, every single, well, I promise you, I brought in away commentating on matches. No, there were no away games commentated on until I started to do it. It was 2001, 2002 season, right? I've either been commentating on every game in the last 19 years away from home, or I know that someone else has. So there's no secret that Wrexham commentate on away matches. And Steve Cleeve waited until our commentators were nearly at the ground before telling them that they were wasting their time. This goes further. Obviously, they were horrified, and I want to make one thing extremely clear here. I am not in any way criticising Kings Lynn Football Club, because I've been in regular contact with the media guys. Their officials were embarrassed Their officials were embarrassed to have to apply this. They knew what was going on. Everybody can see what was going on. Steve Cleeve has a beef against us. He has a hatred against the fact as well that the fans took over, and he left it till the very last second and then said, oh, by the way, you've travelled across country and ha ha ha, I'll laugh at you. You're wasting your time. Could have told us earlier. I wasn't impressed by Stockport, but they made it very clear well in advance that we were not allowed to commentate. I still think that's wrong, but nobody had a wasted journey, even though it's only to Stockport. So Cleeve, basically, well, I was going to come to everyone's comments in a moment, but Robert, yes, doing the Trump, quite right, in so many senses. So yeah, basically, they've travelled all the way across. Now, at first, they were refused admission to the ground, believe it or not. So they actually stopped them from entering the stadium, and that state of affairs seems to have lasted for the best chunk of an hour. That's appalling. Like I said, the officials were embarrassed to have to apply that. Eventually, it was said that they could enter the ground. Now, in the meantime, I'll be honest, I got all my commentary kit out in the front room, and I was going to commentate on it off the stream. But they were allowed in on the understanding there would be no commentary, and it was claimed, I don't know how much manpower that Kings Lynn have got to carry out this threat, that they would be listening, watching our Mixlr stream, and the moment anything went on it, that our media team, the official media team of Wrexham Football Club, would be kicked out of the ground by the home club. Just stop and think about that for a second. That is utterly despicable. So I didn't. I did roll around, the idea of doing a rogue Mixlr stream. That was unwise, I think, because I end up getting sued, quite frankly. Well, I don't know, maybe so, maybe not. I certainly know that Steve Cleeve would come after me personally for quite a while, and I'm not sure I really want to make any space in my life for him. So decided not to. Yeah, I mean, I even with Boreham Wood, who, as I said, that their attitude is wrong, you can't claim that they treat us, another club, like that. That was utterly shocking. And for Cleeve as well to be writing things in his local paper, talking about Dean Keats being a dead man walking. Now, whatever you think of Dean Keats, the fact is that it's so disrespectful to talk about the manager of another football club like that. If, let's say, for example, Roman Abramovich said that about Jose Mourinho at Spurs, would he be charged with bringing the game into disrepute? I think so. The National League, sadly, like I said, Wild West. That's not a ghost, it's a cat, I hope. Yeah. Likewise, during the match, the comments, because Steve Cleeve, of course, I mean, let's be honest here, like Boreham Wood, this is a person taking over a club and making it their object, if you like. He runs a podcast called I Bought a Football Club. He commentates on their home games. All I'm going to say is, if you imagine that, say, Roman Abramovich was commentating on Chelsea games and was making the sort of comments about the referee that Steve Cleeve was making, wouldn't he be charged with bringing the game into disrepute? It all leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Anyway, as far as I'm aware, our media team members were allowed to stay in the ground for the entire game. What a great gift that was from the club, the home club. And okay, this is what's happened. It's embarrassing. I think it's another sign that, sadly, we desperately need to get out of this utterly ludicrous league and into a proper league that knows how to run itself. And I'm not saying that as an attack on clubs that are in it. I've loved going to some of the smaller clubs we've never played before. They're absolutely fantastic. And I'll emphasize again, the media team emphasized to me, the officials at Kings Lynn, the actual people who represent Kings Lynn, not the transient owner, but the actual people who love that club, were embarrassed, but had to follow orders. So, yeah, I'm not attacking the clubs, the fans, the people who work hard, the volunteers who get stuck in for clubs at this level. They are the people that make football special. And there are wonderful things about non-league football. And there have been wonderful things, even though we don't want to be in it, about being in the National League, although it's lasted way too long. But no, the organisation itself, some of the people that it allows to run roughshod over everything, is an utter and complete embarrassment. And I really hope that we are able to get out of it sooner rather than later. I'm sorry to have a 10-minute rant, but that's how I feel. So I'll run through some comments. Please don't be angry with me if I skip some, because I want to have a quick look at just what you think about the situation, but also about what the hell happened in the game. It's been nice to talk about football, wasn't it? We won. Hey, we won. Blimey. Oh, I look steaming. I thought yeah, there's something wrong with this laptop, like I says. Sorry, Martin. Right. Yeah, Robert saying it's terrible behaviour from a childish chairman. Absolutely. Llama dog games. Oh man. Remember the 1980 Llama dog games when all the British, the Americans boycotted it? Oof. Asking about Ponticelli. I'd like to jump back into that in a second. That's a good one. Okay. Just see if there's any quick points about these. Martin, if you're asking about Boreham Woods, yeah, like I say, they didn't. They charge. They charge for commentary. And they charge for use of footage for videos. And although that's awful, ridiculous, I've got to say that the main issue here is the National League. They should just say no. I've said in the past, I'd have been fascinated if Boreham Wood had gone up. What the heck did they made of that? Because they'd have just said to the Football League, no, we won't follow your rules. And the Football League would the Football League have just said, okay, then we're demoting you? It's really, I think that's a moot point because they'd have to follow the rules there. The National League allow teams to ride roughshod that consistently over years and years and years. Okay, let's say this, yeah? When they allowed us to put highlights on YouTube, we were told we could put them on straight away. The YouTube highlights, particularly, but the YouTube channel in general makes a good amount of money for us. But then we were told 2 days before the start of the season that we weren't allowed to put highlights on until midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning, or from Tuesday games, 10 o'clock on Wednesday night. This is because the National League, without consulting the clubs, had done a deal where those chopped up highlights that are done by someone who wasn't at the game, hasn't got a clue what happened, put on the website, they have to be on. Okay, so that meant we couldn't make money out of the deal. I would argue that letting clubs make money out of their own YouTube channels, which would be substantially more than a slice of that very small pie, would be much better for the clubs in the league, but the National League decided not. Loads of clubs, ever since they brought that in, have completely ignored that, and they have published their videos earlier. And a lot of clubs who stick to the rules have complained constantly to the National League to say, what the heck is going on? Stop them. And the National League essentially haven't. But I can give you my word that if we ever published the videos before we should do, we got a threat from the National League immediately of not being allowed to do it. I am not saying it's just us. There was a point a few years ago where there was just a big phalange of clubs like us and Grimsby who were just saying, can't this thing be run properly? Didn't go down that well. Sorry. Anyway, second rant over. I'll go back to the footy stuff in a minute. Oh, I'll come to the National League money as well, if you like. Cleve got karma. Nice one, bootlegger legend. Potential signings, I'll come on to that. Martin saying that Cleve announced our signings in his commentary. He said we got 2 in on Monday. Well, okay. I honestly don't know if that is the case. I honestly do not know. I have no inside line on that. I know the intention was to bring players in over this weekend. I do not know if it's true. What I do know is that Steve Cleve, anything he says about Wrexham was liable to be, it comes with a possible ulterior motive, shall we say. He'd love to be sort of breaking news or spreading stories, wouldn't he, about us? I don't know why. I think he's just move on in his life, but hey. So I don't know. I'd be curious if he claims that, because I don't. He joined the commentary late in the second half and actually could be seen walking across the back of the Christian Dibble's goal with a drink in his hand while play was going on. So he obviously walked around the pitch to get a drink and then was late to commentate for the second half. Um, I'd be curious to know who exactly would talk to him about things like that. He had some very strange detail about our camera crew, which I'm not sure was actually accurate at all. If you look at the newspaper story he wrote this morning, talking about how Kingsland are bound to beat Wrexham and describing Keats as a dead man walking, he said in that about he was quite sort of passive aggressive about Humphrey Carr, who is representing, of course, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds at the club, and sort of he did it again, repeating the sort of he's an educated comedian. Um, so I don't know. There's an ulterior motive behind everything that he says. I'd be quite shocked if somebody within the club at half time was willing to talk to him about that. Not least because who's there from the club? I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know um, what we should say. Yes, Wrexham, yeah. Talking about non-essential travel. Yeah, that's true. Um, because we're a professional football club, and although we're all volunteers, this is in sort of governmental terms seen as a job. That is why we're allowed to go to games. But yeah, those guys travelled across Britain to do a job and then weren't allowed to do it. And you talk about non-essential travel in this of all times, to do that to them. Like I said, it was wrong that Stockport didn't let us commentate, but they did tell us. They did tell in advance. Honestly, no respect for the fact that there is a pandemic going on. Josh saying let's not let him in the ground. Yeah, I don't know. I maybe I should get to the match. Should I? Oh, I did say about the National League thing. I really want more detail on the National League thing. I feel uncomfortable with it, but right. So if it's a loan from Sport England to National League, all right, I can conceptually see it could well be possible that there's a proviso in that you can't give money to Wrexham because we will be catered for by Welsh funding as Wales is devolved. So okay, I can actually see the logic of that. And so we're all ripping into the National League, but maybe their hands are tied. There are a few questions about that from my mind. Well, I suppose the first thing is I assume that's the case because if the National League actually said, "Oh, we're just not going to give you anything because you're Welsh," well, I think you could run into legal issues there by saying that sort of thing. Um, Although I don't know, I mean, the European Union anti-discrimination laws, I think, and the sort of anti-monopoly laws, competition laws rather, I suspect would really defend us on that. But we're not in Europe anymore. What has a right-wing government brought in to replace those? I'm not too sure. Um, so assuming it's Sport England, okay, that means they've been able to, well, I don't know. It then turns the attention on to Welsh bodies, I suppose. Now, the Welsh government have given out a payment to professional sports, but was it nearly 80% of it's gone to rugby? Am I right? And quite a decent chunk's gone to ice hockey. There's 3 ice hockey teams in Cardiff, I believe. I don't know this for sure. This doesn't sound equitable, particularly, does it? So it might be we're pointing in the wrong direction at this. Although I've got to emphasise, if it genuinely the National League has any part in deciding we don't get any, I'd have thought we'd see him in court because that does sound utterly farcical. Let's get back to some more footy stuff. Ponticelli, what do I think about him? All right. Bottom line, Ponticelli, what I think about him is I really hope I'm right. I think he's a cracking player. I think he's a cracking signing, and I'm hoping the fact that he hasn't scored goals is down to the fact that he was injured in pre-season and wasn't able to get on the pitch and get his fitness going, and he's been playing catch up all season. He's also been playing a bit deeper. This happened to Scott Bowden as well, perhaps, a player I think looked good on the shoulder of the last defender, but was being used a little bit deeper to work for a player further on for him. It's a genuine issue that he hasn't scored goals. I think he was the one brought in to score goals. What I saw from last season excited me. He has got into some scoring positions and his finishing's been poor, and I guess that sort of thing I'm not too worried about in a way because let's be honest, he's gonna a player who gets in good positions, keeps missing, will start scoring. I remember when Chris Armstrong first came through. Very young lad, very fast, couldn't finish to save his life, but my goodness, his power and his speed got him into great positions all the time, and eventually it started to click. His confidence got up. He started to score, and then before you know it, he's been grabbed by a bigger club. I think Ponticelli, if he's getting into those positions, great. But it is frustrating. I thought he did well actually when he came off the bench today. He fed some decent balls forwards, and he was unlucky not to get the end of that drilled cross by Record near the end of the match. And he fed in, who was it? Rutherford, well, when he put a ball in that Jordan Davis had the shot blocked by Thomas. I thought he did okay, Ponticelli, today, but I am worried that he needs goals, desperately needs goals. What other things were there? I've got to say, now, you guys know that I am a Keats fan. If you have listened and seen what I've been saying over the last season, I have a lot of respect for Keats. I have faith in him to be able to get something going. But I was happy with Tuesday. I wasn't very happy with the second half today. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was all right because we were 2-0 up, and I don't think we ever really looked in danger of losing that. So let's not get too greedy here. We got an away win. That's great. I'm happy. The first half, we could have really killed them off. Jordan Davis should have finished that little flick finish that he had. But I was shocked that in the second half, having been dominant in the first half, to see us so unable to threaten them until the latter stages when they were throwing players forward. Essentially, we were playing 4-2-4. I was quite shocked at that, to be honest. So yeah, I wasn't too thrilled by it. But I think it's obvious we need more creative and finishing players. Obviously, we need to do something like that to try and bring things in, bring in a bit of quality going forwards. But yeah, I wasn't that thrilled with the second half, personally. There is a little question I'd like to ask, which we didn't find out from the commentary. How bad was the wind, and how exactly did it affect the game? They said at the start it was a force-8 gale. So if it was that strong and it was blowing down the pitch, maybe that's why the two halves are so different. In which case, I get it, and I'm happy that we actually took chances when we were on top. But yeah, well, I wasn't very happy with the second half, but there may be extenuating circumstances, you know. Che Long, hi Che. Happy to see Record and Thomas play well today. We didn't step into second gear. It's a nice 2-0 win away from home. Can't complain. On to the next one. Yeah, exactly. If it wasn't for the sort of context or sort of anger in parts of the fan base, we'd be all great. Nice. We went there. We did the number on them. It was professional, but the second half wasn't dominant. Record got a goal. Fair play. Yeah, Record did well. I thought left wing back. The issue here, of course, is that Jordan Davis looks fantastic at left wing back, and even though today in midfield you could see his quality and his touches, he wasn't as influential as he can be, and Record wasn't driving on like Davis does, despite the fact he scored. So that's a little issue they're going to have to work out, isn't it? And Thomas won some decent headers too, to be fair to him. So yeah, and like I said, a good professional win. Martin, what to think about making signings and playing wages when we don't know if the National League season will finish? Yeah, okay. In the context of the takeover, which I don't doubt will happen soon, I know some people are worried a bit. It's a lot of bureaucracy holding us up rather than anything else. With that not happening, I would be asking that question: is this worth it? And if you think back to Keats's first season in charge, when he got to a point where he'd saved us from relegation, he deliberately started chopping the wage bill because he'd said to the board, if I cut the wage bill now, will you let me have what I've saved next season as an addition to my budget? And so some players were released, or they found clubs willing to loan them on, like Newton going to York, for example. And then Tilt, if you remember, we loaned off to Forest Green when he was a first team player because we knew he was going to leave in the summer. So we just said, okay, then, well, just go. So yeah, in that situation, I think if we didn't have a takeover happening, I'd be inclined to say do we need to do this? If the season doesn't finish, or if indeed there's no promotion relegation, which I think looks likely. Oh, no, sorry. No relegation, which looks likely. I don't think we get drawn into that, but it is a better team than last season. Then, yeah, maybe it'll be daft. But as we get in this takeover, that surely makes our short-term financial situation positive. And it also means that we can bring players in, hopefully of a higher quality, to A, improve the side going forward. So having them signed and tied down and working with players now is good. And B, I know absolutely we are not consistent, but we're also not far off playoff places. A lot of people have talked about writing off this season. I absolutely don't. I absolutely don't think we've settled into a sort of quality rhythm, but I don't think hardly anybody have. So, I think a couple of good signings could boost us. If the season doesn't finish, yeah, I think it's a good question. But if the season doesn't finish and we've got that financial position to ride this out, then bring good players in now if you can, if they're available. I think, if that makes sense. Reese, you did ask, why should I be happy with the Halifax game when we don't get shots on target? It's a legitimate question, absolutely. I don't agree that it was this bad game, but like I scouted Halifax beforehand. They were on very good form. They were top of the form table coming into the match. And I scouted them and they looked really good. I was impressed by them. And I've got to be honest, before the game, I feared we'd lose. I genuinely thought that they look good and could easily come to racecourse and win. The first half, I was happy because I thought we matched them maybe slightly better than them. Neither side made many chances, but it was an interesting game to me. A lot of fast movement to the ball. We tried to create. It didn't quite come off in the first half. Second half, yeah, I agree. We had very little threat, but still, until the last 5 minutes, they didn't create much either. And it just felt to me like two sides that looked decent. I'm not going to say cancelling each other out, but trying different things and being unable to break the other one down. And then in the last 5 minutes, we looked shattered because it was a high-paced game and we fell to pieces and we should have let a goal in then. So, yeah, it should have been a loss. And maybe that would have conditioned by thinking a bit more. But I was pretty pleased with that. I'll have to go soon, chaps, I'm afraid. Let's see, any more greetings from Germany. Thank you very much. Good to see you. I don't buy the Judas thing, Greece, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. What Sam Ricketts did was bad because it affected the team before he left. Keats was given a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I know. Look, okay. I mean, I know the bloke. I know what he's like, and I know that he had terrific difficulty with taking it. And I understand frustration. I think we may well have gone up that season, so I totally understand that frustration. Genuinely do. Yeah, things aren't black and white. There's always subtleties in between it. So I totally get the frustration, but it was a tough thing for him to do and something which he very nearly didn't do. And if you put yourself in that situation, if you imagine that you're offered a playing contract with Wrexham, if you were actually willing to turn that down, wow, you've done yeah, that's a brave step, isn't it? Yeah, you're right, Reece. They haven't had a clean sheet since October. You're absolutely right, and they haven't had a team keep a clean sheet against them since I think it's October as well. Might be early November. So that's the other side of the argument. Reece, it's not an argument. Nice. We're all Wrexham fans. There's people like certain people you've mentioned today. We should be angry about, or certain organisations. We all should be sticking together here. Have a debate. Disagree. Yeah, but there's two sides to stuff. Yeah. Yes, Robert, I thought Jay Harris did well today. Yeah, I think you can see he slowed down a bit, and sometimes he struggles to keep the pace of the game. But I thought he did very well. Tom Scott, which celebrity would you like to spend the bank holiday weekend with, and what would you do? Well, obviously, it would have to be an owl sanctuary with Julia Bradbury. DJ Povey, have any one or two players you think should be essential to try and bring in? I'm not very good at that. Actually, look at this next comment. I thought it was a Gary Birtles for a second. Gary Elston, so small in midfield. Yeah. I think that is a good point. I like Young, I like Harris, but a physicality in there would be good. Although I think a priority has got to be creativity and finishing. Players in the box who will take chances, players who can tee opportunities. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that massively. Right, last one. I'll have to go, chaps. I can smell my dinner and look at the state of my gut. Dinner matters. Uh, oh God, I want to answer Andy Clark's, but um, Martin Rightly, word on Dibble, good performance. He did very well. I was so upset for him when he got grief when he had that spell last season because yeah, his form did dip and his confidence dipped absolutely. But he's a backup goalkeeper and he's a very good backup goalkeeper, and he's consistently come in emergency situations like Bromley as well and done really well for us. And he did ever so well today. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't really feel worried by Kings Lane, if I'm honest with you, but he did make some sharp saves, didn't he? I think the save from Gashly pushed away from the top corner was possibly the best. I'm a failed goalkeeper. I get wound up when people talk rubbish about goalkeepers and people talk about keepers mustn't be beaten by the near post. That's not really true. That was a hell of a good strike, fairly close range, top corner, brilliant reflexes to save that. That was a tremendous piece of work. Yeah, he did very, very well. Yeah. Owen, we are absolutely trying to buy players. Yes, don't worry. But as I said a number of times, Keats plays his cards close to his chest. I prefer that. And Brian Flynn often used to talk about the players he was going to bring in. And then when it didn't come in, you were gutted. Sometimes he'd be alerting other clubs of their availability. And when Flynn left, which was a political issue, and I think he was denied funds perhaps, which he maybe should have been given, but he'd announced Jim Whitley and Mike Stoll as signings. They trained with us, and then we were suddenly told you can't have them. We got no money. So yeah, it can make you look daft when you start announcing the players you're after. I'd rather do what Keats does and try not to leak it out. But I can assure you, and I do know this for a fact, that there's been a lot of work over the last month on bringing players in. Anyway, there's some nice comments down the bottom there. I'm going to Scarpa now. But we won. Let's not forget that. Let's keep united. Nice one. Adios, muchachos.